Once again, the NFL is drawing more attention by not giving the requisite attention to a scandal. Their silence is deafening. So the latest is that the Cowboys reportedly paid $2.4 million to settle allegations of locker room voyeurism on the part of now retired public relations executive, longtime public relations executive Rich Dalrymple. And their initial reaction was it's a club matter. Well, they're all club matters outside of the Park Avenue offices, so don't know what that necessarily means. And then today they reiterated that the league is not going to open an investigation into the handling of these allegations, which were significant enough and substantial enough to warrant a $2.4 million settlement, Charles Robinson. Good to see you again. Your reaction to this story, your insight into this story, and the league's curious decision to stand on the sidelines.
Okay, so I've repeated this several times, and I'm going to keep banging this drum until the league says something about it, does something about it. Back when the Carolina Panthers were investigated by Mary Jo White, okay, SEC chair, very highly respected attorney, does this investigation into the Panthers. Comes out afterward, and this is the last time the NFL has come out and said, here are the findings. We have findings. Here's what the investigator said. Here's what was written. Here's a written assessment of this situation. And this is probably the reason why this was the last time we had that happen. Mary Jo White comes out and she says, here's what you need to do to fix this. You need to have a specific prohibition of using non-disclosure agreements to limit reporting of potential violations or cooperation in league investigations under the personal conduct policy. And then beyond that, you have to have a specific requirement that claims of workplace misconduct issues are always reported to the league office under the personal conduct policy. In other words, it's not just a team issue. It is a league issue. The NFL said, we'll take that under advisement. Since then, no clue whatsoever what that advisement led to. But since then, we found out Washington has employed NDAs. The Dallas Cowboys have employed NDAs. We believe other teams have employed NDAs as part of doing their regular working business. This is part of when you listen to the Washington situation and then even this Dallas situation, you have people who are out there saying X culture existed or X incident happened, a settlement occurred, and then NDAs were signed, and that was it. And now it has to come to light, through some other avenue. It's an NDA problem, okay? Like the league continues to allow ownership to cut NDAs and not force owners to say, here is the NDA we have on file for this incident. And there's no push for that. There's no push for owners to have to come to the league office and say, hey, we're cutting an NDA. We're letting you know. That's now part of the provisions of being an owner in the NFL is that we have to alert you to NDAs and the incidents or the alleged incidents that they're tied to and how that may affect the personal conduct policy. So that's where we are. That's why this happens with Dallas. Yeah. That's why it happens with Washington.
All right, well, quick follow-up, Charles, and feel free to add your own possible reason. I'm thinking, are the Cowboys afraid of what Rich Dalrymple might say if they don't protect him? Or do the Cowboys simply, because it's in their nature, want to protect Rich Dalrymple because he's one of theirs, and they want to protect this culture or any inside knowledge of this culture that either does or one time did exist in that organization?
Rich was in a position of power in Dallas for 30 plus years, okay? I can't speak to what Rich does or doesn't know, but any organization, we've all worked for organizations, okay? I've worked at Yahoo 18 years. I guarantee I know some things other people don't know, okay? $2.4 million in a settlement is a lot of money, okay? That's a lot, especially for something allegedly involving your head of communications. A lot of people get fired in the NFL, especially the head of communications departments get fired a lot. There's a lot of turnover. Rich Dalrymple had never turned over there in Dallas for whatever reason. I mean, whether it was out of loyalty, whether it was out of, Rich spearheaded getting Jerry Jones into the Hall of Fame a few years ago. That was very much something that Rich influenced with a lot of writers, a lot of Hall of Fame voters, a lot of media trying to get Jerry out there and, get an owner in before an owner passes away. I can't speak to why you would pay out that kind of money, allegedly, to make something go away, and whether that's just out of loyalty or out of protecting both this person and yourself. But let's think about the Washington situation. It's been suggested that the reason why the league is protecting the Washington investigation the way it is, and Dan Snyder the way they are, is largely because it is a self-preservation mode as well. There are always certain individuals inside organizations, and I'm not saying this is Rich Dalrymple, but just the case in point is that every organization, there are individuals who tend to know a lot of things. We always, in our field, we say they know where the bodies are buried. And those individuals typically get a high level of protection. So $2.4 million feels like a lot of money to pay just out of loyalty.
Where's this Alvin Kamara situation going? I saw one of the Chiefs players who was with him, I believe, turned himself in.
Right.
Where's the Kamara? But Kamara's obviously the big name.
Right.
Where's this Alvin Kamara situation going to go?
It's going to get litigated, but I mean, there's I think the NFL is going to take the back seat, let it play out because it appears to be on a track to prosecution. And then at that point, the NFL will look at it under the personal conduct policy. And if a suspension is warranted, there will be a suspension. There will be something in relation to the personal conduct policy. But the NFL is definitely taking more of a track that when law enforcement becomes involved and it is an investigation that may be moving toward active prosecution, or at least there's a question, could this become active prosecution? The NFL has now chosen to take a back seat and say, all right, let it play out, and then we'll decide what applies to this situation. Just like Deshaun Watson, they've said, we don't want to trip up any investigation. We'll let it unfold, and then when all the cards are on the table, we'll make a decision.
Yeah.
We didn't, Charles, we didn't have a chance to, bless you, we didn't have a chance to catch up with you after the Super Bowl. So here it is. Great game, great halftime show, but I want to ask you about the game. Are there two or three things that you took away from that result that you want to share with us? At least two. I know it's probably like 10 or 15, but two or three things that you walk away from there saying, man, that was really interesting, and it's sticking with you. What are a couple of those things?
Well, Michael Smith and I talked about it the next day, like pay Aaron Donald, like make sure he's not the 5th highest paid defender in the NFL. Like that's where I heard you guys talking about this. I mean, it's definitely hey, could use a bump. I got 3 more years left on this underpaid contract, and I'm clearly pound for pound the best player in the NFL. And probably I'm in the Lawrence Taylor, Joe Green, Reggie White conversation. Like he has entered that. Yeah. You realize here's an interesting thing about Aaron Donald I didn't know. No NFL defender in history has made 7 consecutive AP All-Pro first teams. No defender, except for Aaron Donald. It's the first one in history.
That's crazy.
To do that. Yeah.
That's a stat. That's a mind-blowing stat. Have he and Sean McVay said enough this week to convince you that neither is walking away? While you're on the subject of okay. Cool.
Yeah, McVay, it's the same situation. Okay, I think McVay, again, coaching figures are always spotty. I have no idea why we can nail down player figures so easily, but it's so difficult to nail down coaching figures. But McVay's in like the $8.5 to $9 million range. He now is looking at 14 to 15. Like he's in that upper echelon. So he's young. He's earned this Super Bowl. He's been to 2 with 2 different quarterbacks. He's due a bump. And so I also think that's part of that. I don't let the money guide you, okay, when nothing else makes sense. So you're like, Aaron Donald, 31, is going to retire. Does that make sense? No. So think about what else is in play. Sean McVay, youngest, coach ever in history to win a Super Bowl, and probably the only coach, frankly, who has a chance to make a run maybe at Bill Belichick, say if he coaches another 25 years Sean McVay could make a run at the success Bill Belichick has had. It doesn't make sense that someone would walk away at that point. Like, unless there's just massive burnout or injuries, we're talking about like Andrew Luck or Dick Vermeil. Like, do you see him breaking down crying like Dick Vermeil? Do we see, Aaron Donald? All I see with Aaron Donald is a man who I never want Dawn to see him with his shirt off. Okay, let's avoid the parade.
Oh man,
it's impressive.
And was there one other nugget or note that you wanted to stress from the Super Bowl before we move on?
We probably should give Cooper Kupp some due here. So, he played 21 games this season. Okay, 2,425 yards receiving.
Stupid.
Just an insane season in 21. Remember, 21 games of availability, 2,425 yards. Got an MVP vote. AP Offensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl MVP. I also thought at the end of that game there was a little bit of recency because I was like, wow, Aaron Donald literally just ended the game. He's probably the Super Bowl MVP. And then when I sat and I thought about it, and you also listen to Cincinnati defenders talk about what they did when OBJ went out, they were like,
right.
We just dumped it all on Cooper Kupp. And yet in that final definitive drive, they couldn't stop him. He deserves some respect on his name. There's no question.
Well, a couple of things. He was a rightful MVP. They should have at minimum been co-MVPs. But
I wouldn't have.
How can you vote? Right, but how can you vote for MVP of the game if the game ain't over? And especially if the last 2 minutes of the game is going to decide a close game.
Not a fan.
It's like
I'm not a fan.
You think that the person who has a hand and they both did. But you think that, let's see the entire game play out. That'd be like giving an MVP award, after week 13. It's like, well, there's a couple more games left. When it really matters, let's see what happens, Who
would have won?
That's not how we do it.
Cincinnati? Who would have won it for Cincinnati? It'd
have probably been Burrow.
I don't know, but
I'm strictly talking about the Aaron Donald part. But real quick on on Cooper Kupp, the amazing thing about his season is almost like him and his game. It's so steady. It's not maybe as spectacular as some other wide receivers, but his week in and week out consistency, because he didn't have any like record-setting individual weeks. He didn't have like a 300-yard week. Yeah, he just kept having like 10 catches and 120 yards, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns or something like that, or 7 for 90 on an off day.
And here's the thing too, like he is the guy that teams were like, okay, well, let's take Cooper Kupp out of the equation and get someone else. And by the way, let's not forget, over the top against the Buccaneers. That's also one of the things when I was watching the Super Bowl, I was like, man, like the Buccaneers are probably sitting here going, 0 blitz probably cost us maybe a shot at getting to the Super Bowl.
Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.